Let's Get To presents Go Go Astros, a focus on H-Town hardball.
Abreu strikes out the side.
It is Friday, and it is after Game 5 of the World Series, and it's time for another Go Go's Astros podcast. I'm here with Andy Tomchesson, as always, and with James Christopher. James, what are your emotions right now having watched Game 5 of the World Series?
Well, I have some emotions about the game, but I'd like to talk about what's grinding my gears, and I've had enough of it. And it begins with Houston, we have a problem, and ends with the Phillies are going to be Rocky Balboa in this scenario. So let me just point out two things. One, yeah, Houston wasn't the problem in the movie. They actually fixed the problem in the movie because it was a room full of smart people. And also, to Philly fan who is pointing out that this is Rocky and we are Apollo Creed. Apollo won in the first movie, and I don't think you're getting any sequels to fall back on. So just, I don't know. I wish people would understand the movies they watch.
I'd like to make 2 points here that sort of extend beyond that. One is we would welcome Philly fans to become our friends in any future sequels and help us fight any Russian superbots who are really Swedes. And secondly, it's important to note the most important thing about Apollo 13. Hey, Apollo is our theme, is our movie theme today. Apollo 13, Apollo Creed.
Yeah. Oh wow. Whoa.
Yeah. But of course, the hero of Apollo 13 were not the astronauts. It was not Tom Hanks. It was Gene Kranz, Ed Harris's character. It's the nerds. So that seems good news for a team that is based on analytics fighting the advantages as opposed to just let's spend a bunch of money on a free agent here. This seems a good setup when we talk about Game 6. Andy, when that game ended last night, I felt I exhaled for the first time in about 3.5 hours. That was as emotionally draining a baseball game as we've gone through, and we've gone through a lot of those.
Well, I can tell you the best way to watch an Astros playoff game is to over-medicate yourself with anything you can find over the counter. I think I was Theraflu and some blood pressure specific cold medicine, and then fall asleep somewhere in the third inning, and then wake up to a win, and then watch everything that happened and go, wow, that was easy. Because the rest of you seem really stressed out today, and I'm like, this is fantastic. I went to bed, we were ahead. I woke up, we were still ahead. Great.
I hate you so much right now.
I'm telling you. I
got the downside is I am in Westchester, Pennsylvania, home of Chaz McCormick. So I have been subject to bad sandwiches as gourmet food, and something called Scrapple this morning, which is not.
Just tell him that Sheetz is better than Wawa, and
Oh yeah, that's a thing.
Yes,
only if I'm headed towards the airport at that moment.
But I tell you, Brian, like the stress of last night, we've talked about this on the show, and I'm like, I am a guy when I can't sit there and watch it when it's closed. I have to be doing other things. I was out of laundry, and so I went and tightened the doorknobs in all of my house. I don't know if they were loose. I don't usually mess with tools. That's just, and Jessica's was in Galveston, so she's a little bit ahead, and all she's doing is texting me emojis. I don't know what these emojis mean. I don't know whether they're good or bad. And I'm just like, I tried everything to get, and if I die at 80 instead of 84, we can blame the 2022 Houston Astros.
Yes, they certainly took multiple years off all of our lives. A friend of mine sent me a message. At such and such a time last night, you had a tweet that was that was terrifying. What was that about? And I can't remember which terrifying thing that happened that it was about, because there are so many possibilities. That was it wasn't even an emotional roller coaster like Game 5 of the 2017 World Series was an emotional roller coaster. No. That was just, they were up the entire time, and it was just so taut on, that they would do the high wire act, that they'd walk the tightrope to get out of all those situations where it could have gone so wobbly. and it didn't. But the fact that, they got out of all those situations means that, I've listed 5 potential heroes from last night's game.
Yeah.
Maybe hero is too strong a word here because, it's just baseball. But, as emotionally invested as we all were in this, I'm going to go with that term here. So start my list here, give your impressions here. Chas McCormick, he's pretty awesome. Andy, you're in the hometown of Chas McCormick. So tell us when the Chas McCormick parade is scheduled in Westchester.
I think it might be a while after him for performing the bank robbery last night, as they're calling it up here. He is not going to be local boy that does good, makes good anytime soon. They spent a lot of time yesterday on talk radio interviewing him actually yesterday. And one of the shows was asking him, you grew up in Westchester, grew up a Phillies fan. Yeah. Who are your parents? What jerseys are they going to be wearing tonight? And he said, well, I hope that they're wearing Astros jerseys tonight. And then the host pauses and looked at him again and said, are you sure? And Chas said, no, I'm really not.
No.
Chas said we in his post-game interview last night referencing the Astros, and I took note of that, as I wasn't necessarily expecting those words out of him in this situation. Certainly, I mean, I will say this here, Mike Trout always goes back to Eagles games and they always show him on TV and he gets a big cheer. Yeah, I don't recommend that for Chas anytime in the future. It's just
Mike Trout is never
having a great season. Shockingly enough, they beat the Texans last night in a game which I'm sure hundreds were in attendance at. And
Mike Trout never has to worry about beating the Phillies in the playoffs, so he's not going to upset anybody.
Trout doesn't have to worry about beating anybody in the playoffs, but that's
exactly.
We had Sam Blum on earlier to talk about that. So
I have to apologize to all my fellow Cowboys friends out there because I was talking to my buddy and we made a deal that I would allow them to win the Super Bowl if we got the World Series. So I apologize.
This is a trade I'm willing to take.
Sure.
So, second on my list of heroes, Jeremy Pena, 2 RBIs and that great snag of a liner in the middle of the game. And, they all turned out to be really crucial plays.
And the ground ball he fielded. I mean, that was another where he kind of had to basket catch it almost and get the throw off.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead, Andy.
One of the interesting things watching Jeremy Pena in these playoffs is every time he does something, it's the first time or the only time a rookie shortstop has done whatever it is in the World Series. And that's great for him, but it also begs the question, how many teams have advanced to a World Series at this level of baseball with a rookie shortstop? And I bet that's a pretty short list.
Yeah, and actually both these teams have rookie shortstops. Which probably has never happened, though I haven't seen anyone in the stat. But it speaks to usually, I mean, we see this with the Astros at catcher, right? They care deeply about having a veteran leader type who, marshals his pitching staff through and just cover your eyes during Maldonado's at-bats. Right? But, as shortstop, a position where that's common, where I think a lot of us thought maybe you get a vet. If you're not going to get Correa, you get a veteran, so a year to marshal this rookie through.
Yep.
He's played outstanding, and more importantly, he hasn't played like a rookie since the first day, right? This is a man of great poise on the field, someone who really, carries himself in a professional way, despite his age, and the results are, we see the result. They're pretty awesome. James, your thoughts on Pena?
Yeah, I mean, I keep coming back to the fact that I'm so pleasantly surprised at to your point, like the concept of wanting to roll the dice on a rookie who could have all the talent in the world and still supposed to be a rookie at that position for a team that was supposed to contend. I was nervous, and so I'm completely okay with being wrong on that. And it's funny because you're talking about heroes of the game, and then I start to think about MVPs of the series, and there are so many candidates for that role, and he'd be right up there for that.
All right, that actually allows me to get to my candidate for MVP of the series, which is Ryan Presley. Because
mine too.
Hey, there you go.
I think we're in agreement.
All right, and I think this at bat has gotten buried by the defensive plays, which were awesome. But first and third, 1 out, they bring him out of the bullpen to face Brandon Marsh, He absolutely needs a strikeout, and he gets it on 3 pitches. It was outstanding. It was phenomenal, and it wasn't the least bit surprising to me.
Right.
Andy?
I think again, we've talked about relievers, and some people get hardwired about relievers and their ability to perform or not perform. If you still have questions about whether or not Ryan Presley should be the closer on this team, I don't know what you're watching at this point because it's not baseball. He has done everything this team has asked him to do, and he has been in this playoffs lights out, not surrendering a run, being as stingy as he can be with hits, and now coming in and cleaning up other relievers' messes. I mean, he got a 5-out save last night. That's huge, and that's part of the rub on Ryan Presley was, well, you need to give him a clean inning. Let him start at the beginning of the 9th and figure it out before then. He's not that guy anymore. Certainly not in this playoffs, and it's just to the betterment of this team because I don't worry the way I would have worried with a Brad Lidge or a Billy Wagner or Luke Gregerson, who I guess got saves at some point during the playoffs. You're welcome for that, Jim. He did get a save in 2015.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely different than, say, 2017, right, when we had
nobody.
Yeah, Ken Giles shitting the bed during the playoffs.
Yeah.
And you need to
Charlie
find
Morton was your closer.
somebody else, and they picked their way through. The thing we know is that, in the 9th inning of Game 6 or Game 7, Ryan Presley's taking the mound, and we're all really, really confident in that. Ryan Presley, 0.527 win probability added last night, which is really impressive because you start with a 0.5 win probability.
Okay.
And
did he just give us his
more than basically, what you started with in
did
just
Brian
5 outs. And
did
there's
Brian
another
just give us his
stat
PIN
called
number?
Say it again.
Did you just give us your PIN number to your ATM card?
No comment. And there's another stat called championship win probability added.
Okay.
Over the series, 32.53%. And in the game, I thought I had that, but I don't. But again, it's been at sort of the highest level things throughout the playoffs, but especially last night against Brandon Marsh, which was a critical at bat. And again, it feels like it's declined because, oh my goodness, Trey Mancini made a big play for us.
Yeah, and how good did you guys feel for him? Because he even said like he felt like and I think JV said JV said on the MLB he had came up to him and said, I felt like I haven't done anything. At least I got to do something.
He said that to the team because evidently at the end of the game they gather around and kind of talk about making sure Chas McCormick gets props for his big catch, and they brought up Mancini and said, that fielding that ball that Schwarber hit was instrumental in this win. And Mancini to the team basically said, I know I haven't been hitting, so I'm glad. I know I'm not known for my defense, so I'm glad I could come up with something to help this team win.
And now
and it's just, if you're rooting for the guy, I mean, I don't know how you can't be at this point because something good's got to happen to Trey Mancini this series. And maybe that was it last night, and that's enough, frankly.
Yeah, because it was, as all of these plays, a pivotal play. They don't win the game without that play. And, part of the thing is Trey Mancini is just like a massive optimist about life. Yeah. And you even hear that. You even sort of, I think, hear his optimism in talking about how how he's not achieving his goals, how he's not helping, that sort of like here. And so that's part of why you sort of root for him. And obviously you've got he had cancer in 2020, couldn't play in the 2020 season. And thank goodness for all sorts of reasons. And the Astros reasons are the least important here. Doctors caught it. He's cancer-free. So he is a great story to follow. He's someone I think we're all rooting for more than, I think we're all rooting for the Astros here, but someone we're sort of individually rooting for. It's nice that a good thing happened to him. And if he has to play first base in Game 6 because Yuli's not able to go, hopefully, that gets him some momentum, that gets him some positive thoughts in his head that he can have a better at bat than he's had in the playoffs here, because it's been frustrating. And that's there. I guess we should talk about Yuli for just a second here. we didn't quite anticipate that Yuli Gurriel having an injury would be so sort of emotionally hurtful to us in this playoffs here, or hurtful on the field here. Is this something we have to worry about a lot? Andy, I'll start with you.
I mean, it's a knee injury to a first baseman. It is something that could potentially be worrisome. The good news is they're in Houston. He's going to get treatment. It's probably fairly minor. It probably didn't help that he sat on the bench, got cold, and that knee's probably started to swell a little bit. It did not look pretty on the field, especially when you watch it in the replay, because he basically planted his cleat and his whole body went the other way. But according to him on his Twitter, he's okay, just a little bit sore. Dusty, of course, knee discomfort, because that's what the Astros told him to say. So, who knows? I would anticipate it's Game 6 of the World Series. If he can go, Yuli's going to go. But Trey Mancini's not a bad backup to have there. And that's why James Click picked him up, frankly.
Yeah. James?
I think he's going to go. Part of me thinks, because remember, he stayed in the game, right? He didn't actually come out of the game until a spot in the order came up. I almost wonder, did he get pulled from the game for the head thing? And then, like you said, Andy, the knee swells up, it gets cold, because he was actually holding his head in the dugout in different shots. And maybe that's a whole other thing, because he did get his bell rung pretty good. I agree. I think he's going to go. I don't think he's going to sit. I hope it doesn't mean that he is sort of offensively diminished, because he has been key, but I think we'll see him on the field tomorrow night.
Yeah, I would sort of expect that. Frankly, I expect that all the cortisone in Houston may enter into Yuli's knee, which, there's some ethical issues of shoot yourself up for one game, but it's only one game. So, but we know that happens with,
And as Billy Bean said, first base is a very easy base to play. Anybody can do it. So,
and if Ron Washington is not available to tell us that it's incredibly hard, because, well, the Phillies eliminated him earlier. But one indication that first base is incredibly hard is the winning run was scored on a play at first base. And one way to interpret the game is, they both teams got a one-run home run. Both teams got one hit with a runner in scoring position. Please get a second hit with a run in scoring position in Game 6, Astros. And the difference was a play at first base. Mancini made a play on the hot shot by Kyle Schwarber, and on the hot shot by Jordan Alvarez. Rhys Hoskins couldn't make the play, fumbled the ball out. And really, for the first time this series, the Astros' defensive advantage showed through, and that was a big key to winning the game.
I thought about you when that happened. Actually, I thought about you when Marsh actually fumbled the ball in center field in the first inning. And I was like, Brian has been waiting for all the defensive stuff to finally pay off. And here we are. And I think the Phillies wore it as almost a badge of honor that they didn't really think about defense when they signed that team. And I just, for the life of me, don't understand why. And I do think it's showing. I think it's showing. And I love the fact that we have, I was like, I tweeted this earlier that, the Astros really did their best to not have Chas McCormick be the center fielder throughout the year. We had Dubon, we had Myers up, who wasn't hitting anything. And all he's done is made plays. And most importantly, the one he made last night, but he's been doing it nonstop all season. So I'm actually just really love the fact that the defense is actually starting to come into play and paying dividends for us against a team that seemed to not care about it.
Yeah, here's a fact about McCormick in center field. McCormick never started 5 straight games in center field during the regular season, and he didn't start 4 in a row in center until the last 2 weeks of the season. He's not supposed to be the center fielder, but thank goodness he's the center fielder.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I think it's been interesting in this series as well as the first two. The things we said the Astros would have to do to win games is keep the other team in the ballpark and rely on their pitching and play good defense. Bad defense isn't always Gleyber Torres completely missing a turn and missing IKF for a sure double play. Sometimes it is a bobble of the ball in the outfield or an inability to pick a ball at first. And you're starting to see, even in a small sample size of 5 games, some of those advantages bearing out. You'd like to think they're going to continue into Game 6. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I think it's the games that the Astros have won. It may sound simplistic. We've kept them from hitting a bunch of home runs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have walked maybe a few too many guys. We've had a little bit too much traffic on the bases, but the home run, keeping them in the ballpark has limited the damage. And we've relied on our good defense and certainly our bullpen to carry us through. So the Astros need to continue that formula and hopefully make it a little bit less stressful on everybody. I'll probably be awake for this game. You never know. I've been drinking the official drink of being sick, ginger ale.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're awake, because if things go the way we want them to go, we'll be live, and we've even got a guest host, so we can be asked questions the whole time. It's gonna be fun.
Sweet. Fifth person on my list here is Justin Verlander. I will admit this. I thought they should have pulled Verlander after 2 innings, and I was wrong. He had a really strong 3rd and 4th inning, and even though he gave up that, very solid double to Bryce Harper, was able to get himself out of the 5th inning. Y'all's impressions on Verlander? Did you want him pulled, and did you think Dusty should have, sent him through 3rd time through the order? And yeah,
yes.
So I was awake for this part. It took him until the 3rd inning for the slider to start sliding, for him to get a good feel for his curveball. And the Phillies had adjusted after being no hit by Javier that they were going to be swinging at fastballs and getting on top of especially high fastballs. And so those first 2 innings were kind of predictable from that perspective. Verlander made that adjustment and was able to get through the next 3 with no damage because he found his slider. And he even said as much, I think, in the interviews I've watched this morning, that sometimes it just takes me a minute to get there. I've got so many things that I'm thinking about that it's like a golf swing. And the one thing can set me off, and I finally figured it all out once I got past the 2nd inning last night. So I'm happy for him. I don't put near the gravitas that Major League Baseball was trying to put on him getting a World Series win or not, because I just wanted the Astros to win. But he pitched well. He did what he had to do to get out there and put the Astros in a position to win the game, which is what he did.
James.
Yeah, I think, I tweeted at you about 1,500 times during that first 3 innings. So yeah, I definitely was wanting him pulled. And I think, credit to Dusty. I think, I don't know if we win the game if we go to the pen any earlier. And I think having faith in his guys has obviously burned him twice this series, and it could still burn us ultimately, right? Like we if for some reason Philadelphia does one of those things that's been rarely done, we can still look to game 1 and be like, well, but I think, I wanted him pulled and really applaud both he and Dusty for making us look silly. And I don't think that Dusty was like doing it so he'd get the win. I mean, because he did have somebody up, right, in 3, 4, and 5. I think that JV really rewarded his confidence, to Andy's point, when he finally did figure out the slider.
Yeah, and there was a big difference, particularly I think Mike Petriello of MLB.com had a tweet up that showed the difference between where Verlander was throwing it in the 1st inning, which is right at the top of the strike zone, as opposed to the 3rd inning where the slider was starting to work and he was getting it, arm side, middle of the plate, much better pitch there. And again, and hey, good news for all the narrative people. He got a win, which, on the other hand, he's 5th on my list here because, well, I think he was the
most important stat in baseball. Pitcher wins.
Yeah, which,
yeah.
It's
although Dusty had a great response to that in his press conference. They said, how important do you think it is Justin for his legacy? And he said, well, I've won 2,000 games, and all I talk about is how I've never won a World Series. So I think, there's something to that, at least when it gets to Cooperstown, we won't have to hear that be the narrative.
Yeah. It'll be one less thing to talk about on the negatives of Justin Verlander when he goes into the Hall of Fame with, 90 to 95% of the vote his first year. it doesn't really matter, but apparently it does based on the coverage. But hey, our team's up 3-2 in the World Series. They get a day off today, which I'm entirely grateful for at this point because my cardiologist has recommended that and has suggested I take up yoga and needlepoint after the World Series ends, but not going to do it until after this weekend. Game 6 Saturday night. Framber Valdez is going. My prediction for the World Series was the Astros in 6 and Framber's the MVP. So I'm feeling pretty good about our matchup on Saturday night. James?
Look, I don't know when I've become so gun shy about things. I'm absolutely confident. I had them in 6 with, I think, Jordan as the MVP. So that's probably not going to happen. I'm always wary as an Astros fan that because I think God hates me a little, like things could always get pulled out from under us. But I think if you are taking a very logical and very analytical view of this, the Astros there's a reason why they're overwhelmingly favored to win the World Series now, because essentially, even if somehow the Phillies pull out the win Saturday, they're going to have to do everything they can to win Saturday. And it's hard to win 3 games when you're throwing everything at that game. And I think, I know it's bad to go off prior performance, but Framber dominated and Framber pitches well at home. And I'm still not sure that the Phillies don't have an injured pitcher in their starter. And so a guy that the Astros have already touched up. So yeah, I feel good about it. I feel, I have just got a coupon to buy a movie replica proton pack from Ghostbusters, and I'm saving the money for other things. That's where I'm at.
All right, Andy, what are you saving money for?
I would like to stop coughing someday, so that's really the goal. And the good news is these Harvey Firestein voice lessons have really kicked in. I'm hoping to really take over some of his roles later on this year. I think everything is lined up. I think what Jim is trying to dance around and not say is everything is lined up in the Astros' favor to win one of the 2 games this weekend. And so if that happens, ipso facto, we become World Series champions again. I would love to see it finished in 6. I think we have the right pitching in place to do that. We need Framber to be the Framber of 2022 and not the Framber of 2019 or 2020 or 2021 so much. So he's got to do whatever he needs to do to keep the moment from getting too big for him. We've got to figure out a way to score some easier runs. That feels kind of paramount to me, because whether or not Zach Wheeler is hurt, he's still going to be effective for at least a short period of time. And then they're going to throw their best relievers at us again. If there's something I'm worried about, I'd probably be okay with the Phillies not seeing Rafael Montero again this series. And maybe that's where Stanek comes in. Maybe that's where Hunter Brown makes a big appearance. I don't know, but I think they kind of have figured out Montero to some extent, which you kind of expect because he's appeared in all 4 of the 5 games. That's part of what happens in a short series or a long series, is that you get a lot of exposure to bullpen pitchers. Presley, for some reason, I'm not worried about, even though he'd be making his 5th appearance in 6 games. But I would worry about Montero making another appearance in the late innings against anybody that's not 7, 8, 9 for that team.
Yeah. Brian Abreu's pitched a lot. I'm not worried about him because the Phillies know it's 100-mile-an-hour fastball coming. They just can't hit it.
In a ridiculous breaking ball that they also
ridiculous breaking ball. And again, his shoulders get bigger every time.
Arms get a little longer.
Yeah, like if he rented a tuxedo, if he's going to a wedding next week and he rented a tuxedo a month ago, he's got to get some new measurements on that. I'm impressed by that. Yeah, I mean, both teams will get to reset their bullpen because of the day off today, which is an advantage for the Phillies, just in the sense that they only have a handful of relievers they trust. On the other hand, every single one of their relievers is pitching well right now. So,
yep.
will that last? I hope not. But we'll see. But hey, Presley and Abreu have been awesome. And you have, again, maybe you can short it. Maybe you can short a bullpen pitcher because Fromber goes long. We shall see. Again, Zach Wheeler is a really good pitcher. He's a really good pitcher in the regular season. Are concerned about Zach Wheeler, and the Phillies seem to be concerned about Zach Wheeler because they didn't have him pitch in Game 5. They gave him extra days, and seems like that's based on his velocity was down in Game 2. So, this isn't just us wish casting, though. Certainly, there's some wish casting in the sense that we hope he's not as sharp as he is, and then he has a nice recovery this off season because no one should be injured. But hey, it's a reality of baseball here. So that seems. Yeah, go ahead.
But I also think too, like obviously we cannot factor in, like the intangibles of all of this, but I just have to wonder, the Astros having been there before, having experienced a series like this slip away, and then also having won 2 very different types of ball games in Philadelphia, I just have a feeling they're going to be less jumpy than I think the Phillies are going to be. And I think it's obviously the natural result of also not being down in the series. Saturday's not a must win for Houston, and it absolutely, of course, is for Philadelphia. And I think that's going to also play in the Astros' favor.
Yeah, no, I think that could well be the case. It's always hard to track the psychology because there are often psychological explanations both ways. The Phillies, I'm sure, will say what Blake Snell said, which is, all the pressure's on them. They don't want to go back to San Diego. So, I'm sure the Phillies are like, all the pressure on the Astros. We don't have to worry about, this game here, which is, who.
Something else I like about the Astros, though, is we don't have Blake Snell on our team making stupid statements to the media like that.
It's as though
maybe Alex Bregman would have done. Yeah, maybe Alex Bregman would have done that in the 2018 season. He's not doing that anymore. Yeah. We don't have a team of guys like that, and if we do, they're smart enough to keep their mouths shut.
Yeah.
That I think is a big deal. I don't think bulletin board material is a real thing the way fans think it is. But why give an opposing team any extra motivation?
Yeah,
and just shut up and play the game.
And also, no one regrets going to Southern California. No one
Ever.
regrets going to San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego is America's finest city. Who doesn't want to be there? I'll just add to Andy's point here that the Astros are led by Jose Altuve, who I think doesn't care what anyone's narratives are and doesn't care about what he says in the press, and keeps everything everything at a this is just business. We'll go about our business level, and other players feed off of that. So again, hopefully that is helpful going into Game 6 Saturday night, 7:00 in the Central Time Zone, same time as Alabama LSU. So that'll be a conflict in my house that we have to negotiate our way around here. But only one game involves a championship being actually decided on the field here. So we will be back again. If the Astros win Game 6, we'll be back immediately after Game 6 live, and we will see. We'll have our own dog pile here.
Yeah.
On the Go-Go Astro show. Virtually, but we'll figure out how to make that work here. And
Jim's got a green screen.
Yeah.
And I talked to Dad Hat Ed Rivera is going to come on and actually host it, so that way he can really let us all just celebrate and not be on, which I'm very thankful for.
Well, thanks in advance to Ed for that. We hope to see you on Saturday night, or we will talk about the game. Well, we'll see what happens here. So that is our show today. James.
Go Stros. I'm going to put my own neurosis aside. Astros win it tomorrow.
There you go. Andy.
Fried chicken and Frito pies all around. Astros win Saturday.